What makes a man abandon his pregnant wife, and what happens when fate punishes him instantly for it. Imagine a mafia boss who thought he controlled life and death, until one selfish act left him haunted by the sound of a boarding gate and a flight that never returned. Get ready for a story where pride kills faster than any bullet, and redemption comes too late to matter. See it. A powerful man standing in silence at JFK Airport, his 4 months pregnant wife, crying as she boards her plane. Minutes later, storm clouds swallow everything good in his life. He has money, soldiers, and blood on his hands. But not the one thing he'd die for: a second chance. Prepare to watch a mafia boss destroy the very empire he built just to feel her heart beat one more time. When control is your entire life, losing it once can tear everything apart. After leaving his pregnant wife at the airport, Rocco Taviani learns her flight vanished over Illinois skies. Now he's torn between seeking the truth in the wreckage or accepting that his own pride caused her death. You won't believe how far a man will go when the ghost he's chasing is the love he buried himself. At JFK's Terminal 4, the world smelled like wet asphalt and jet fuel. Rocco Taviani's wife, Alara, stood by gate 23, one hand on her belly, tears making thin tracks through her makeup. "You're not listening, Rock," she said, her voice trembling. "You can run a family, but you can't love one." He turned away, jaw locked, pride burning like napalm in his chest. Her words were a knife, but he refused to bleed in public. Alara was 4 months pregnant, with their first child after 7 miscarriages. The doctor had just told her to avoid travel, but Rocco had snapped, accused her of betrayal, told her to take a break. She boarded. He boarded his black Mercedes. By 9:47 p.m., Flight 847 lifted into the storm. By 11:33, his consigliere, Dario Lucenti, called. "Boss." His voice broke. "They lost the signal, over midair. No survivors so far." The whiskey glass fell from Rocco's hand. On his white rug, the amber spread like blood. At JFK's Terminal 4, the world smelled like wet asphalt and jet fuel. Rocco Taviani stood behind the glass, thunder reflecting off his eyes. His wife, Alara, waited by gate 23, 4 months pregnant, trembling, one hand over her stomach, as if sheltering something sacred from the storm. "You're not listening, Rock," she whispered. "You can run a family, but you can't love one." The sentence hit him like a gunshot in a church. People turned, sensing tension but not danger. No one ever guessed that the man in the tailored black coat owned the ports, the trucks, the streets beneath their shoes. "Alara, don't start this here." His voice was flat, a practiced weapon. "You wanted space. Take it. Just don't make a scene." Her lips parted, 1,000 unsaid pleas trapped in her throat. The doctor's warning echoed in her mind. No flights, no stress. But she boarded anyway. She'd rather risk altitude than stay one more night under Rocco's walls of silence. When the boarding gate's chime sounded, she looked back one last time. "If something happens, remember, it wasn't the baby's fault." He blinked. The words didn't make sense, but pride doesn't translate pain, so he turned away, leather gloves tight around his fists, pretending that her tears weren't real. Outside, the rain painted streaks down his Mercedes. He drove into the night, city lights dragging behind him like ghosts. Somewhere between Queens and Manhattan, the rhythm of the wipers matched his heartbeat, and every beat whispered her name. By 9:47 p.m., Flight 847 lifted into the storm. By 10:15, he poured whiskey in his glass and told himself she'd call once she landed. She always did. By 11:33, the phone rang. "Boss." It was Dario Lucenti, loyal since 16, voice shaking like the wind behind him. "They lost the signal, Flight 847, somewhere over Illinois airspace. Nothing yet, no survivors so far." The glass slipped from Rocco's hand. Amber spread across his white rug like blood and snow. He didn't answer, just stared at the wall as thunder cracked over Manhattan. Hours blurred, orders barked, planes grounded. His men reported from airfields and radar towers. By dawn, the reports stopped using the word lost and started saying crashed. He walked into the hangar at LaGuardia, wearing the same suit. No sleep, no humanity left in his eyes. A mechanic handed him a paper, flight manifest, and his hand froze on her name, Alara Taviani, 4B. The mechanic swallowed. They said pregnant women, they usually don't make it through. Rocco hit him once. Cold, efficient. The man dropped, teeth scattered like dice. No one moved. They all knew grief when it borrowed violence as its mask. By noon, Rocco's private jet sat idle. By afternoon, he had already wired $500,000 to a man who claimed to find wreckage faster than the feds. The search hadn't even started, and already his empire began to shake. "Boss," Dario said quietly, wrapping Rocco's coat around his shoulders. "You need to sit. You'll make mistakes." "Mistakes?" Rocco's tone split between madness and memory. "I made one at gate 23. He looked out at the skyline, rain turning New York into a watercolor of regret. Every honk, every engine, every plane above the clouds mocked him now. The man who once decided who lived or died couldn't command the heavens to return one heartbeat. A flash interrupted the silence, his phone vibrating, an unknown number lighting up. He answered instantly. Static filled the line, then a fragile voice. "Rocco?" His breath caught. "Alara! Alara!" The line snapped. Only silence. He replayed it, desperate, but it was gone. Just interference, or insanity. That night, his penthouse mirrors reflected a man he didn't recognize. The whiskey, untouched. The marble floor glowed with city lights, yet everything smelled of smoke and endings. He whispered to the air, "Come home, amore. You win. Just come home." Outside, lightning struck again, painting the skyline white. Somewhere over Illinois, rescuers sifted through twisted metal and scattered passports. Among them, a silver charm bracelet engraved with a name, Alara Taviani. Rocco wouldn't know that until morning. But when he finally closed his eyes, for the first time in years, a tear escaped. And far away, where the wreckage burned, a soft heartbeat still fought against the darkness. What if what he heard wasn't static, but her? Rain punished New York for 3 straight days after Flight 847 vanished. The city dripped like it was mourning with him. Rocco Taviani hadn't slept since Ilara's name hit the news crawl. His penthouse smelled of cigar smoke, iron, and grief. Everything he couldn't wash off. Every clock tick was a countdown he no longer understood. He had built his world on control. Guns, cargo, men who'd die at a nod. But how do you threaten the sky? Dario Lucenti stood in the doorway, eyes rimmed red, holding a tablet. "They found the wreckage, boss. Near Lincoln County, Illinois. The plane came apart mid-air. Cargo door failure. That's what they're saying so far." Rocco's eyes cut toward him. "Bodies? They're still searching. The weather's bad." Lightning licked across the skyline. "Weather's always bad," Rocco muttered. He picked up the glass of whiskey that had been on his desk since the call that night. Still untouched, still full. "She was 4 months, Dario," he murmured, staring through the glass as if he could see her reflection. 4 months after 7 tries. She thought that child was hope. His voice cracked into something human. "I told her to take a break. From me." Dario took a step closer. "Rock, there's something else. FAA report mentioned. A possible tampering with maintenance records. The plane was cleared by a company under contract with..." He stopped there, voice heavy. "With who?" Rocco's tone lowered. Dangerous, blood warming under the ice. "Lucien Moretti," Dario confessed. "It's one of his shell firms. The Moretti Group services aircraft for the Chicago routes. Could be nothing, but..." Rocco's chair groaned as he stood. Pride cracked open into wrath. "Call Armano. Find every man on the ground who touches Lucian's planes. I want names. I want voices. Boss, if this was an accident..." "It wasn't." Rocco's fist came down on the desk, rattling bottles. "You think coincidence chooses her flight? You think God enjoys symmetry?" Outside, thunder slammed the glass. He turned away, voice lowering to a whisper. "No, someone wanted to hurt me, the only way they could." By midnight, the Taviani safe house in the Bronx burned with activity. Soldiers loaded weapons, mapped flight paths, hacked flight logs under candlelight and tension. Dario kept glancing at him. Knowing vengeance was a drug Rocco couldn't resist. In the corner, a photo rested on a table. Rocco and Alara on the Amalfi Coast, before the syndicate devoured his softness. She was smiling, belly flat, wind in her hair. He touched the image gently, tracing her outline like something sacred. "You told me I couldn't love," he said under his breath. "Maybe you were right, but I can destroy for love." The phone buzzed. A blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice trembling. "Is this Mr. Taviani?" "Who is this?" "I worked at the maintenance hangar. I shouldn't be calling. But your wife's flight, sir. It wasn't standard procedure." The manifest was edited. Someone added a courier last minute. The captain objected, but they ordered the plane to depart before the storm cleared. Rocco gripped the phone tighter. "Who ordered it?" She lowered her voice further. The name was coded, but initialed LM. Then static swallowed her words. The call dropped. Rocco stared at the dead screen. The air felt electric with the kind of silence that precedes violence. Dario entered with updates, but stopped when he saw Rocco's face. "Boss?" "Lucien Moretti signed the flight." "Are you sure?" Rocco's jaw worked slowly, like a man chewing his own fate. "No, but I'll be sure by dawn." He walked to the window. Rain pooled against the glass like tears the city cried for him. "We lost Alara because I told her to go. But if another hand touched that plane..." He picked up his gun from the desk, weighing it like a promise. "Then somebody else falls from the sky too." Dario's throat tightened. "And if it really was an accident?" Rocco didn't answer. His eyes traced the skyline, dark towers shivering under lightning as a small, bitter smile appeared. "Then I'll make God explain it to me in person." Far away, in a rural field under floodlights, search crews found a fragment of fabric, pale silk, edged with blood. It was part of a maternity dress. A rescuer lifted it gently, whispering, "Poor thing." But beneath that dirt, something small and metallic clicked under pressure, unnoticed, a charm shaped like wings. Back in New York, Rocco felt a strange tightness in his chest, as if a heartbeat tried to speak through storm and soil. What if she wasn't on that plane alone? The following morning broke without sunlight. New York hid behind ash-gray clouds, as if afraid to look him in the eye. Rocco Taviani stood on his balcony overlooking the river, smoke curling from the cigarette he didn't remember lighting. Sleep had become a foreign language. Grief was the only fluency left. Below him, black SUVs idled. Inside, his war council waited. By the time he stepped into that room, the air was already tense. Men whispering, phones buzzing, fear pulsing like static. They all knew what happened when Rocco's heart broke. Empires burned. "Report," he commanded. Armano spoke first, voice steady but eyes darting. "We found the woman who called last night, boss. Maintenance clerk. Name's Hilary Mendez. Dead this morning. Car explosion, Queenside. Same pattern we've seen when Moretti cleans evidence." Rocco's jaw locked. Lucien didn't waste time. "There's more," Dario added. A courier boarded Flight 847 at the last second. A fake manifest ID tied to a Moretti front. The name used was Matteo Varin. Rocco froze. "Varin?" His tone cracked like old wood. "That's the same man Alara said she saw watching her outside the doctor's office last week." As realization spread, silence swallowed the table. Dario leaned forward. Then she knew, Rocco. She knew something was wrong. He stared at the city lights outside, red and white reflections blinking through rain. "She told me, but I didn't hear." The room waited for his next command, the kind that changed the city's weather. Finally, he exhaled smoke and rage. Lucien hid a man on that flight. Find Varen's relatives, his banker, his mistress. One of them talks before sunrise. No one breathed. By evening, the Bronx safe house turned into an interrogation chamber. Concrete silence. A man hung from the ceiling by his wrists, blood dripping from his forearm tattoos. Moretti's serpent insignia, visible even beneath bruises. Rocco approached slowly, gloves pristine, voice low enough to make the air shiver. "Tell me who paid for the courier seat." The man coughed blood. "You think your wife died 'cause of Lucien? He don't need to kill women, Taviani. You did that yourself." The words detonated like gunfire in Rocco's veins. His grip tightened on the man's collar. "Say that again," the man spat. "You sent her to that gate. He just watched you do it." A gunshot. Quick, echoing. Rocco turned away before the body even hit the floor. "Clean it," he muttered. Dario's hands trembled slightly. "Boss, he was baiting you. We could have—" "No." Rocco wiped the gun with a cloth. He was right. For a moment, silence claimed the room again. Even the rain outside stopped whispering. When he finally looked at Dario, something in his eyes changed, something colder than vengeance. "Do you smell that?" he asked suddenly. "Smell what?" "Fear," Rocco answered. "It's the only thing keeping the streets breathing." He grabbed his long coat, stepping into the storm. Every drop hissed against his skin, washing nothing away. He arrived at the cathedral where Alara used to pray. The candles flickered like nervous stars. He dropped to the same pew she had once sat on, her voice echoing faintly in memory. "One day, Rock, this heart of yours will drown everything you've built." "I thought you meant love," he said softly. "You meant guilt." The door creaked open behind him. Dario's reflection appeared in the candlelight. "Lucienne's moving tonight," he said. "Dock 17, Chicago shipment. It's the same route that fed into the airline contractor." Rocco rose, eyes sharpening, grief weaponizing into purpose. "Then the sky bled us, brother," he said quietly. "Let's make the earth bleed back." Midnight at Dock 17. Rain fell harder, hiding footsteps, blurring intentions. Moretti's men laughed near the shipping containers, not knowing death waited in the dark. One by one, Rocco's soldiers emerged, shadows with guns. In seconds, lightning flashed, thunder cracked, and bullets replaced prayer. The docks screamed, metal clanging, bodies dropping into the Black Sea. Rocco walked through it all untouched, eyes locked on one man crawling toward him, Lucian's lieutenant. "Tell your boss," Rocco said, crouching low, voice deadly calm, "that the sky isn't big enough to hide from me." The man gurgled something he couldn't finish. Rocco stood straight again, coat whipping in the wind. Behind him, gunfire echoed like applause from hell itself. But when silence finally returned, a flicker stirred inside him, a doubt. Because in the chaos, one of his own men, Matteo, the youngest soldier, had disappeared, taking with him the courier's satchel recovered from the ship. What was he running from? Rocco whispered into the storm. He didn't yet know the satchel contained ultrasound photos, labeled with Alara's name. One's dated 2 days after the crash. What if the lie isn't in her death, but in her disappearance? Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The funeral came without a coffin, without a body, without closure, only the absence, dense, suffocating, and merciless. Rain slicked the marble steps of St. Dominic's Cathedral as the Taviani family gathered in black silence. No one dared meet Rocco's eyes, not his soldiers, not his cousins, not the priest bought to sanctify what no god could bless. The man who once ran New York's docks now stood in front of an empty casket, his empire trembling under one unspoken truth. He had buried himself long before he tried to bury her. The choir hummed soft Latin requiems that meant nothing to him. Words about heaven, forgiveness, light, none of which belonged to a woman whose last minutes were swallowed by thunder. Dario stood near the doorway, watching his boss as if expecting an explosion instead of a prayer. His fingers kept touching something inside his pocket. A folded photo of Alara smiling on the boat deck months earlier, belly still flat, sunlight in her hair, a ghost of peace before madness took root. After the final hymn, the priest approached hesitantly. "Mr. Taviani," he said, "the absence of the body complicates." Rocco's stare silenced him. "The sky didn't swallow her," he said in a low voice. "Men did, and men will answer." Outside, reporters hovered like vultures, shouting, questions through rain. "Mr. Taviani, do you believe the crash was sabotage? Is it true the FBI's questioned one of your companies?" Rocco didn't speak. He moved through them like smoke. His umbrella tilted against the rain, but his face remained uncovered, daring the storm to touch him. In the back of the black car, he finally exhaled. The inside smelled faintly of Alara's perfume, still traced into the leather from the last night they'd driven together. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he saw her, head tilted toward the window, hand resting on her belly. "Do you ever wonder," she'd said back then, "if the world would keep turning if you stopped moving?" He'd answered something cruel he couldn't remember. Pride had erased the details, but not the echo. Beside him now, Dario poured 2 shots of bourbon. To her, he said quietly, sliding one toward Rocco. Rocco didn't take it. I don't drink for peace, he said. Only for war. Dario sighed. You think Moretti's enjoying watching you burn? He'll enjoy it more when he realizes I'm the fire. They rode in silence, passing crowds holding candles, praying for the victims of Flight 847. Ordinary people who lost ordinary loved ones. Rocco envied them, at least their grief was pure. His was poisoned with guilt. When they reached the cemetery gates, Rocco gestured for the driver to stop. He stepped out into the cold mist and walked alone between the tombs, past the graves of men he'd ordered buried and ones who'd died protecting him. He felt nothing for them. Only the whisper of Alara's voice haunted the space between his heartbeats. A flicker caught his eye, someone standing behind an angel statue at the far row. A woman, half hidden by umbrella and raincoat, watching him. When he neared, she turned, dropped a letter at his feet, and vanished into the fog before he could call out. He picked up the envelope. Wet from rain, the ink bled slightly across the paper. One word stood out through the smears. Don't trust anyone. The baby lives. He froze. His pulse slowed, then roared. The cemetery swallowed the sound of his breathing. He tore the envelope open. Inside was a hospital wristband. The name printed on it blurred, but 2 letters were clear. E. Taviani. Dario caught up moments later. Boss, you okay? He looked up slowly, voice unsteady for the first time. She was alive after the crash. What? Dario blinked hard. How? I don't know. His fingers clenched the bracelet. But someone knew where to find me, and they wanted me to see this. Could be a trap, Dario warned. Then let's see who's hunting who. He turned back toward the car. Get me every surviving passenger's name, cross-check hospitals, and send someone to Illinois, quietly. Don't let the feds smell what we're looking for. Back in the car, he pressed the bracelet against his lips. For the first time since the crash, his voice cracked open with something raw, trembling at the edge of madness and hope. Hold on, Amore. If you're out there, I swear on everything I've built, I'll protect you, even if it costs my life. As they drove away, lightning flashed again over St. Dominic's spire, casting long shadows across the empty coffin. What if she's not dead, but hidden? The city didn't sleep, and neither did Rocco Taviani. 2 nights after the funeral, his penthouse turned into a war room. Satellite photos, hospital logs, and encrypted flight manifests covered the walls like veins of obsession. Every hour a new lead surfaced. Every hour it dissolved into smoke. The letter, "The baby lives," played on repeat inside his skull. That single sentence stripped him of control worse than any bullet ever could. Dario entered quietly, rain gleaming on his coat. Boss, the Illinois contact delivered. Most victims burned beyond recognition, but 3 were never recovered from the wreckage, including seat 4B, Alara's seat. Rocco looked up slowly. You're saying she wasn't found? No remains confirmed hers, but 1 survivor was hospitalized under anonymous ID in Peoria before being transferred to a private facility, and then vanished without record. Dario set a thin file down. Guess who financed the transfer? Rocco scanned the document. The name hit like a blade. Lucian Moretti. He exhaled through his teeth, steady but deadly calm. He's been playing God with ghosts. There's more, Dario added. The same facility doctored flight maintenance records last month. One of their medics used to work for a cartel Moretti Supplies. Rocco crossed to the window. The rain drew shards of silver across the glass. His eyes were distant, like he was staring through miles of storm to a world only he could see. He took her, he murmured. Not to kill her, but to keep her hidden. Maybe as leverage, maybe revenge, maybe because he knew I'd burn the world to find her. Dario looked uneasy. Boss, if she's alive, we may not want to see the condition she's in. Rocco turned. She's carrying my blood. I'll find her even if she doesn't want to be found. At that, the phone rang, a secure line used only by a handful of men. Armano's voice came through, urgent. Boss, we pulled the courier's satchel Matteo stole from Dock 17. He dumped it in a Bronx alley before someone gunned him down. Rocco's lips parted slightly, and there was a USB drive sealed in a weatherproof case. We cracked it. Inside, black box logs. Silence. Cold, vibrating silence. Rocco's hand tightened around the receiver. Bring it to me, now. Half an hour later, the flash drive glowed blue in the dim office. Rocco inserted it. Static filled the speakers. Then voices, pilots communicating before the crash. We're over altitude limits, cargo latch failing, requesting emergency descent. Then another voice cut through. Low, male, not a pilot. Keep going. Orders say no abort. Stay on course. Rocco froze. The recording distorted, then stopped. Dario stared at him. That sounded like Lucien, Rocco finished, tone ice cold. The bastard was on board via radio link. But something else caught his ear, a faint noise behind the voices. A rhythmic thump, weak but regular, not mechanical, human. A heartbeat monitored over intercom. He replayed it again and again. A medical sensor tracking a fetal pulse. Rocco's body locked in place. He whispered, "The baby." Dario's hand shook. "That means Alara was alive when they recorded this," Rocco said, his words sharp as glass. "They put her on that plane wired to machines. She wasn't a passenger, she was cargo." The taste of bile rose in his throat. Suddenly, revenge felt too small a word for what built inside him. He grabbed his coat, heading for the elevator. "Call Vincenzo. Ready the jet. We're flying to Chicago in 1 hour." Dario followed, nervous. "We'll need clearance. The feds—" "Let them follow," Rocco interrupted. "They can collect what's left of Moretti afterward." In the hangar's black expanse, rain hammered the tarmac. As he approached the plane, Rocco's mind burned with images. Alara hooked to machines, her stomach rising and falling with shallow breaths. A rival's hand administering control over both her and their unborn child. He clenched his jaw. "You wanted war, Lucian. Now you'll taste it." Dario tried to speak reason. "If this goes wrong—" Rocco didn't let him finish. "If this goes right, I bury him next to his empire." As the jet roared to life, a flash of lightning revealed a stranger near the hangar fence. Female silhouette, long coat fluttering in the rain. She watched the plane rise into the clouds, then turned to the camera phone in her hand. A text appeared on her screen. "He's coming. Start the transfer." Miles away, in an undisclosed clinic, machines blinked rhythmically beside a woman's bed. A faint pulse filled the room. Her fingers twitched. The nurse whispered into the phone, "She's responding again." Alara Taviani's lips moved faintly. "Rock, what if she's waking up, and someone else wants her silenced first?" Chicago wasn't ready for Rocco Taviani. By dawn, his jet sliced through a red-gray horizon, thunder rolling behind like cavalry drums. He hadn't spoken in hours. The only sound was the steady clink of his rosary, each bead a confession, each prayer a threat. When the wheels touched down, his men were already waiting. Black cars, tinted windows, guns disguised as gifts. The Taviani insignia now looked more like a flag of war. Dario rode beside him through the waking streets. "Boss, the clinic's under protection. Moretti's guards. Black SUV rotation every 3 minutes. The place is registered under a medical charity, but the funding reports match his private accounts." Rocco stared out the window, jaw grinding. He thinks distance makes him safe. Illinois, charity. He forgets I built my empire on moving contraband through saints and surgeons alike. At 9th and Halstead, they stopped beneath an old railway bridge, the scent of rust and rain mixed with gun oil. Rocco adjusted his tie, not to look elegant, but lethal. His reflection in the car window was a ghost sculpted by guilt. "Bring the truck around," he ordered. "We go in fast. No noise until the lights die." His men nodded. They'd seen him calm before violence, the kind of steady that chilled bone. At 10:04 a.m., the convoy rolled toward St. Bridget's Rehabilitation Center. Harmless name, sinful truth. Inside, behind bleached walls and scripture quotes, Lucien Moretti's guards patrolled the hallways dressed as orderlies. Rocco's crew cut power to the grid the moment they breached the door. Darkness ate the corridors. Alarms wailed and silenced in quick succession. The scent of electrics burning filled the air. Gunfire followed, short, sharp bursts. 2 of Moretti's men fell near the stairwell. Rocco moved like shadow and steel, his focus unshakable. Every motion screamed her name. Ilara! Ilara! Dario kicked open a door marked Lab 3. Inside, monitors still glowed on generator backup, revealing incubators, IV lines, data sheets labeled Subject 47B, Fetal Test Series. Rocco's throat closed. What the hell is this? Dario read the lines. Hormonal mapping, experimental procedure. Christ, Rock, they used her. They used your child. Rocco's world snapped in two. He gripped the monitor until glass cracked under his palm. Where is she? A trembling nurse cowered behind a desk, hands up. Please, don't kill me. I was told she'd die otherwise. They kept her sedated. Where? He roared. Lower level. Quarantine ward, East Wing. He moved before she finished speaking. Boots pounding, Dario trailing, heart hammering. At the end of a long corridor, a steel door waited with a biometric lock. Rocco didn't bother hacking it. He shot the hinges until sparks rained down. The door collapsed inward. And there she was. Ilara Taviani, alive, pale, attached to a ring of machines breathing for her. Her belly had grown rounder, 4 months, maybe 5. Tubes looped through her arms, heartbeat monitors blinking steady but weak. Rocco stumbled forward, hand trembling as he brushed her cheek. Ilara, amore mio? Her eyelids fluttered, lips parted. A faint breath escaped, his name in a whisper. But before he could answer, automatic fire erupted from behind. Dario dove, hitting the switch that killed the generator. The room went black except for sparks and Ilara's monitor flashing red. We're outnumbered, Dario yelled. Rocco dragged her off the bed, wrapping his coat around her. Call the extraction. Team! They're pinned outside, he turned sharp. Then we make our own way out. He pressed Ilara's hand against his chest, whispering, I'll protect you, even if it costs my life. Shots tore through the glass. Rocco fired back, 2, 3, precise. Bodies fell. Blood pooled under fluorescent sparks. The building screamed as power systems melted. Dario grabbed him. Rock, we need to move. Fire's spreading. He looked once more at the machines, the ones that kept her alive, and ripped every cord from their sockets. Alarms shrieked. He carried her through smoke, gun in one hand, her limp body in the other. Outside, the facility burned behind them, explosions snapping windows like thunder. Rain poured harder, turning flame to steam. They reached the car just as police sirens wailed in the distance. Rocco laid her in the back seat, brushing hair from her face. Her pulse still beat, barely. Dario glanced back, breathless. We've got her, boss. We actually got her. Rocco stared at the burning clinic, jaw tight. No, Dario. We only took her back. The war starts now. Lightning cracked above, reflecting in his eyes like twin barrels of rage. Somewhere inside the fire, Lucian Moretti watched on a monitor feed, smirking faintly. She's alive? One of his men asked. Lucian smiled coldly. Good. Now he has something left to lose. What if saving her just lit the fuse to destroy them both? 3 nights after the fire, Rocco Taviani's penthouse no longer looked like a home. Bloodied bandages littered the sink, bullet fragments glimmered in whiskey glasses, and Ilara lay on his bed, alive, sedated, guarded by 2 of his most loyal men. The glow from the city below painted her face in flickering orange, half angel, half memory. Every hour he checked her pulse, steady but fragile, each beat a borrowed miracle. Dario entered quietly, documents clutched in his hands. The clinic logs, we traced everything, payments, patient lists, secure backups. Moretti's name appears indirectly through dummy corporations, but there's a lead. He slid a black recorder onto the table. Recovered from the clinic's security archives. Maybe it explains why he kept her alive. Rocco's eyes narrowed. Play it? The tape hissed, then came voices. Lucian Moretti's smooth accent. A viper behind velvet. Keep the woman stable. Taviani's wife is leverage, not a corpse. The fetus, our target. Her blood carries what the doctor calls resilience markers. Genetic resistance to stress hormones. a trait Taviani's kind would kill for. Then Ilara's voice, faint but defiant. You think he won't find me? You don't know my husband. The recording ended in static. Rocco shut his eyes. His hand trembled before becoming a fist. He turned her into an experiment. My wife, my child. Dario hesitated. Boss, we found something else. From the wreck, fragments of the plane's black box. The feds won't release the data, but our contact, Agent Lanza, owes a favor. He sent this. He opened a laptop. The screen showed a line of flight transcripts. 2 final seconds. 2 words recorded before the explosion. Pilot. Pressure stable. Unexpected signal. Female voice. Tell Rocco. Then the line cut. Silence filled the room. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. She tried to warn me, Rocco whispered. She called through static that night. I thought it was madness. It was goodbye. Dario swallowed hard. Boss, you need rest. Rage won't help her now. Rocco looked at him, eyes burning with the fever of obsession. Rage is all that's left. Moretti wanted her blood. Now I'll drain his empire for every drop. He stood, facing the window. Below, his soldiers gathered like ants under streetlights. Dozens of black coats awaiting orders. Tell them it starts at dawn, he said. Every warehouse, every account, every associate with the name Moretti goes dark. Dario hesitated. That'll bring massive heat. You'll lose the ports, the council's protection, maybe even the mainland alliance. Rocco turned slowly, voice deep, deliberate. Let it burn. The only kingdom worth saving is lying in that bed. Behind them, Ilara stirred faintly. Her lips parted as she whispered something small, broken. Don't kill him. Rocco froze. Ilara! Her hand moved, reaching for something unseen. He said, the baby. Safe. Her eyes flickered open, hazy, glimmering through sedation. Promise me. Rock. No more blood. He knelt beside her, gripping her hand. You're safe now, Amori. I swear it. I'll protect you, even if it costs my life. But her wristband caught his eye. New hospital tag. Different logo. Not from the clinic. They'd replaced it post-rescue. He frowned. Who switched this? Dario stepped closer, brow furrowing. What's wrong? Look at the code, Rocco said. Different ID, different facility. That means she wasn't the only patient moved that day. He flipped open Dario's file. Beneath her chart was another name. Patient 47C, anonymous male infant. Relocated, undisclosed. Rocco's breath hitched. The baby survived, Dario blinked. That's impossible. She was still pregnant when, not if they cut him out before impact. His voice cracked. They could have taken him, Dario. My son. The room spun. Rage morphed into horror. If Moretti still had the baby, then the war was no longer vengeance. It was rescue. Rocco turned to the window again, face ghostly under lightning. Find Moretti's next shipment. He'll move the child like contraband. He's always used containers for bodies. Boss, we need proof first, Dario said, voice trembling. Rocco's eyes glinted like knives. The proof cries somewhere in the dark. Thunder rolled. The skyline flashed white, and in that light, Ilara's eyelids fluttered open once more. Don't rock, she murmured, weak. You'll lose everything. He brushed her hair back with trembling fingers. I already did. Then he walked out into the corridor, gun tucked under his coat, rain waiting to baptize his rage again. Far away in a freight yard outside Chicago, a guard loaded a steel container marked Humanitarian Aid. Inside, a newborn's faint cry echoed under the hum of engines. What if the baby's alive, but in Moretti's hands? The storm had passed, but the city still bled under gray skies. In Rocco Taviani's penthouse, the sound of rain dripping from the terrace matched the rhythm of a slow, failing heartbeat. Ilara slept under soft sheets, her breathing shallow. Machines monitored her from the shadows like silent witnesses to a tragedy not yet finished. Rocco sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees, eyes locked on the monitor's pulse line. He hadn't changed clothes in 2 days. Bloodstains marked the cuff of his shirt, a reminder that love and war carried the same color. He spoke softly, voice cracked and low. You once told me control would be my undoing. That love wasn't about power but faith. I told you faith was for priests and beggars. You were right. He looked down, rubbing his face with shaking hands. I thought I was building a kingdom, but I built a cage, with your heart inside it. Ilara's eyelids fluttered faintly at his voice. He leaned closer, whispering, You were carrying our son. I didn't even hold you once without argument. I made you cry in airports, in boardrooms, in our damn mansion built from sin. I left you when you needed me most. His gaze shifted to the small box on the table, the recovered black box's second recording. Dario had warned him not to listen alone, but guilt is a private language. He pressed play. The speaker crackled with the final moments of Flight 847. A pilot crying out, metal groaning, and faintly, her voice again. Tell Rocco, forgive himself, then static, then silence. He covered his eyes, body shaking with suppressed grief. Every tear he had refused now came in a rush. Forgive myself? How, Ilara? I buried you with my pride. I turned love into a battlefield. And now I don't even know if our child breathes. Ilara stirred again. Rock. His head snapped up. Her voice was weak but real. She blinked slowly, eyes meeting his for the first time since the fire. You found me. He took her hand carefully, afraid she'd vanish if he pressed too hard. Always. I'll never lose you again. She smiled faintly, tears tracing her pale cheeks. You already lost me once. That wound doesn't heal easy. He kissed her hand. Then let me carry the scar. You focus on coming back. We'll find him, Ilara. I'll bring our son home. Her body tensed slightly, her voice fell to a whisper. Promise me something, Rock. Don't make him grow up under the same shadow. Don't raise him with revenge in your eyes. He hesitated. His whole life had been built on vengeance, fear, power. He opened his mouth, and for the first time in years, uncertainty crept in. If revenge keeps him safe? No, she cut in weakly. The word was small, but it hurt more than a gunshot. If it costs your soul, he'll lose you too. Don't let pride be the father he remembers. Her eyes drifted shut again, exhaustion swallowing her voice. The monitor ticked steady, fragile as candlelight. Rocco sat still for a long moment. Then he pulled a small notebook from his jacket, one Ilara used to carry for prayers, and opened it. Inside were sketches of baby clothes, names scribbled and crossed out. At the bottom of the page, if it's a boy, Arden. He traced the word, whispering it like confession. Arden Taviani, my heir, my forgiveness. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Dario entered quietly. Boss, we traced one of Moretti's routes. Cargo ship leaving from Buffalo tonight. Manifest includes cryogenic medical units. Rocco closed the notebook slowly. How sure? 80%. Could be him, Rock. The baby. Rocco looked back at Ilara. Her sleeping face was both peace and punishment. He pressed a kiss to her forehead and whispered, I'll bring him home, but I'll do it clean. Then to Dario, voice steady again. Prepare the men. No blood unless they shoot first. Your old self wouldn't say that. My old self already buried his wife. As Dario left, thunder rolled gently across the Hudson. Rocco placed the notebook beside her and held her hand one last time before walking out. Outside, the city seemed to bow its head. Somewhere across the water, Lucian Moretti loaded his final shipment, unaware that redemption itself was coming for him. What if love, not vengeance, becomes the final bullet that ends this war? Subscribe so you don't miss the final reckoning. Your comments decide whether Rocco's redemption saves or destroys him. Snow fell quiet over Illinois, like the world was trying to cover its sins. The crash site of Flight 847 had long been cleared, fenced off, forgotten by everyone except one man. Rocco Taviani stood there alone, a black coat against a white horizon. The air smelled of metal and frost. Wind carried what was left of thunder, soft, distant echoes of what had burned his life to ashes. Behind him, Dario kept a respectful distance. Boss, you shouldn't be out here. Rocco's voice came low, steady. This is where she disappeared. This is where I finally told the truth. He knelt in the snow, brushing away ice to reveal a twisted piece of metal, a scrap from the fuselage. The paint had worn off, but the number 847 still showed faintly, like an old wound refusing to heal. He placed a small box beside it. The ring Alara wore the day she boarded the plane. He'd kept it on a chain around his neck since the crash. With slow care, he buried it, under the snow. Every empire ends the same, he murmured. Mine began with greed and ends with a grave. Dario stepped closer. We found the cargo ship Rock. The baby's file matched an infant listed as Arden Cole, smuggled through Moretti's channels. But the ship caught fire near Buffalo when our teams closed in. Rocco tensed. You're telling me no bodies recovered, no remains confirmed, just ashes and silence. But it's possible, Rock. Maybe they moved him before the ship burned. Maybe someone else took him. Rocco closed his eyes. Hope is the cruelest weapon. Thunder murmured low across the fields. He straightened slowly, looking toward the ruined horizon, the place where power, love, and pride had all collided. Did you ever think this would end here? Dario asked quietly. I thought it would end on a throne, Rocco said. Turns out it ends on my knees. He brushed frost from his gloves, then took a thin vial from his pocket. Alara's final medication from the clinic, now empty. She left something good in me, Dario. I didn't see it when she was alive. I only see it now that everything else is gone. Dario's eyes softened. What will you do now? Rocco's answer came like smoke. Disappear. Let the docks reclaim themselves. Let the streets find their next king. You mean Lucian? Rocco gave a faint, cold smile. Lucian's empire is already dying. Feds raided his accounts. The council turned on him. He's running, but the ghosts are faster. Dario handed him a folded photograph. One last thing. Pulled this from the wreckage archive last week. Rocco unfolded it and froze. The picture was weathered but clear. Alara, smiling weakly, hand over her stomach, standing with a paramedic. On the edge of the frame, a baby carrier. A date stamped the corner, 3 days after the crash. Rocco's breath caught. She gave birth, out here, after the fall. Dario nodded slowly. There's no record of the infant's death, Rock. No burial. Whoever found her might have saved him before Moretti's men arrived. Wind swept across the field, carrying snow like ash. Rocco stared down at the frozen ground, realization slicing through him. She had survived long enough to bring their son into the world, and he had spent a year destroying it out of guilt. She gave me life even as I tried to take hers, he whispered. That's who she was. He reached into his coat, pulling out her prayer notebook. Flipping through faded pages, he found the last line she'd written. When love outlives the body, it becomes truth. He closed the book and looked toward the emptiness where fire once ruled. Then this truth belongs here. He laid the notebook on the snow beside the buried ring, stood, and drew a deep breath that felt like confession. Goodbye, Alara. Goodbye, Arden, wherever you are. Behind him, Dario waited for him to leave, but Rocco didn't move. The snow kept falling, erasing footprints, erasing history. Only one set of prints would remain, his, leading to the wreckage and stopping there. When Dario finally looked back a minute later, Rocco was gone. Only the snow-covered ring and notebook remained, catching the last reflection of twilight. Some say he walked into the fields and never returned. Some say he found them. The sky above Illinois turned crimson, as if to remember him. What if peace doesn't mean survival, but forgiveness? Subscribe if you want to see what redemption truly costs. Your comments decide if Rocco Taviani's story ends or begins again.